Picture this. You're sorting through a handful of quarters you've set aside after a day of errands, and one piece in the mix catches your eye. It's 1987, but something about the way the letters in Liberty lean or the way the eagle's feathers seem almost too pronounced makes you pause. You lean in closer, your heart picking up speed, because you know that a glance like this, just a flicker of doubt, can lead to a find that turns an ordinary moment into a collector's triumph. For anyone who's spent years combing through pocket change, registry sets, and dusty albums, that spark is what keeps the hobby alive. And today we're zeroing in on the Washington Quarter from 1987, a year when a handful of coins slipped through the mint's strict quality controls and rode straight into the pages of numismatic lore. Let's roll back to the mid-1980s when the U.S. Mint was in high gear, producing quarters in Philadelphia and Denver at rates unseen since World War II coinage ramp UPS. By 1987, collectors and everyday spenders alike were used to the copper-nickel-clad pieces replacing silver in 1965, yet most quarters still moved through circulation so quickly that errors often went undiscovered for decades. That year, Philadelphia minted over 1.2 billion quarters, Denver a similar count, aiming for enough change to keep vending machines humming and toll booths turning. Somewhere in that sea of coins, however, a small number of planchets met dies with minute cracks or slight misalignments, creating anomalies that would eventually catch the keen eyes of error hunters. One of the most beguiling aspects of the 1987 quarter lies in its origin story. The Washington design, originally introduced in 1932 for the bicentennial of George Washington's birth, had by then become a workhorse of U.S. coinage. Chief engraver John Flanagan's depiction of the first president stayed unchanged through picture circles until the 50-state quarters program kicked off in 1999, so the 1987 issue represents one of the final stretches of that classic, unaltered motif. When you hold a 1987 quarter, you're touching a direct link to nearly 6 decades of American history, from the Great Depression through the Cold War, an unbroken lineage that gives every anomaly extra weight in the eyes of collectors. Spotting a valuable 1987 quarter starts with the mint mark. On a typical issue, you'll find a crisp P or D tucked just to the right of Washington's ponytail ribbon. But error pieces sometimes bear a faint duplicate, a second mint mark that overlays or sits slightly askew from the primary impression. These doubled mint mark errors are subtle. Imagine seeing a ghost of a letter overlapping the first, and they require proper lighting and magnification to appreciate fully. If you've ever traced your fingertip across those raised letters and felt the tiniest bump, you know the thrill of confirming that this isn't just a clean strike, but a rare misstep in the minting process. Another category to watch is die doubling, which occurs when the hub and die don't align perfectly during the pressing sequence. On a standout coin, the date, 1987, might look as if it's been stamped twice, with the second instance nudged slightly to the side. Under a loupe, those double numerals appear sharp, almost like micro-railroad tracks that converge at the ends. Even the word Liberty can display that doubled effect, giving the letters a shadowed quality. These are known as double die obverse or reverses, depending on which side of the coin shows the phenomenon. And while many double dies from the 1980s languished unnoticed in pocket change, collectors today pay premiums for any significant doubling on a 1987 quarter. Then there are the die cracks, thin raised lines that snake across the coin's surface, revealing fractures in the steel die used to strike the planchet. On some 1987 quarters, those cracks trace delicate arcs through the eagle's wingspan or bisect Washington's jawline in a way that almost looks intentional, like a secret signature. The severity of the crack influences the value. A faint hairline requires a trained eye and grants modest premiums, while a wide, jagged fracture that forms a comma shape near the reverse legend can push prices into the hundreds. Collectors often hunt for coins with multiple intersecting die cracks, so-called spiderweb patterns, because they stand as physical records of the die's final days before being retired. Off-center strikes represent a third fascinating class of errors. The mint's high-speed presses sometimes fed planchets that weren't perfectly aligned, resulting in coins where up to several millimeters of the design are missing. On a dramatic 1987 off-center, the word Liberty might be sliced halfway off, or the eagle may appear lopsided, perched only on one side of the planchet. Subtle misalignments, say 2 millimeters, yield off-center pieces prized by seasoned collectors, since they're less likely to be noticed by casual handlers. These coins come with a caveat. The more off-center the strike, the smaller the struck area and the fewer planchets struck, driving scarcity and value upward. Turning now to numbers, a typical circulated 1987 quarter trades at face value, or fetches $1 or $2 at most when listed by condition collectors, but cross into about uncirculated 50 Australian dollars territory, and things get a lot more interesting. 58 Australian dollars coins with trace luster and virtually no contact marks command around $10 to $20, especially if they show any hint of doubling or a minor die crack. Uncirculated grades, MS60 to MS65, unlock a radically different market. An MS60 specimen might sell for $25, MS63 for around $60, and MS65, where fields shimmer with original mint frost, pushes well into the low three-figure range. Non-error MS67 pieces, nearly flawless examples out of billions struck, can still appear at auction and bring a few $100s, but they're true unicorns. Error pieces redefine the ceiling. An MS65 double die obverse with bold, crisp doubling on both the date and Liberty can fetch $1,500 to $2,000 privately, while certified MS67 error coins have brought over $4,000 under the gavel. One headline-making sale in late 2023 saw a Denver-minted double die obverse MS66 coin cross at $4,200, setting a new benchmark for the series. Auction records show that presentation quality error coins, complete with pedigrees tracing back to prominent collections, often exceed their certified non-error counterparts by factors of 10 or more. Yet value isn't just about price tags. It's also about stories that breathe life into metal and history. Take the tale of a collector from Ohio who discovered an off-center 1987 quarter in a roll purchased at a bank. Under her loupe, she spotted the shift just enough to demand a closer look, and by the end of the week, she'd traded the piece through a specialist for enough to cover her summer vacation. Or consider the coin show in Texas where a dealer, armed only with a desk lamp and a magnifier, spotted a substantial die crack extending across the reverse eagle's right wing. The find made local news when the owner bid quietly, then walked away with a payout that covered a complete Morgan dollar set. Condition matters more than most newcomers realize. In circulated grades, even modest work can mask doubling or hairline cracks. So many error coins are likely still out there, hiding in pocket change. High-grade uncirculated examples, on the other hand, lay bare every detail. Luster appears in broad flashes. Contact marks show a clear pattern of placement, and any anomaly stands out like a signature. As we wrap up this extended look at the 1987 quarter, keep in mind that every coin carries the potential for discovery. Whether you're an established collector eager to add a new error piece to your album, or someone who recently found a 1987 quarter in a jar of loose change, the hunt is part of the story. In the next section, we'll turn our attention to the 1980 Washington quarter, another date packed with its own set of rarities, market twists, and tales of chance encounters. So stay tuned and get ready to unearth the secrets of yet another seemingly humble quarter. Shifting gears, let's step back 7 years to 1980, another chapter in the Washington quarter's unbroken run, and a year that quietly delivered its own set of surprises. Picture yourself rifling through a collection of coins from childhood, finding a 1980 quarter that looks perfect at first glance. Then, under magnification, you notice that its 1980 date seems to sit slightly high on the planchet, or that the lettering in United States of America bears a faint doubling, like a whisper of history pressed twice by the die. That moment of discovery, seeing what others have overlooked for decades, is the thrill we're after, and the 1980 quarter holds more secrets than most realize. Back in 1980, the mint was still catching its stride after switching to copper-nickel-clad coinage in 1965. Production numbers for the year were enormous. Philadelphia struck over 1.3 billion quarters, Denver just over 900 million. A workhorse issue, meant for commerce more than collection, the 1980 quarter nonetheless found its way into the hands of millions of Americans. Yet, Hidden in that massive output were anomalies born of equipment wear and human oversight. Dies developed hairline cracks, hubs sometimes stamped twice, and planchets occasionally fed off-center. Tiny errors that only the most observant collectors would prize. The historical backdrop adds weight to the 1980 issue. It sits at the dawn of the Reagan era, when America was grappling with inflation and shifting economic policies. The coin's design, a profile of George Washington by John Flanagan on the obverse and a soaring eagle on the reverse, offered stability and continuity. Every time the mint pressed a planchet, it repeated a motif in circulation since 1932, linking the modern economy to the founding era. For collectors who grew up in that period, those quarters might evoke memories of soda machines and payphones, gas stations, and lunch counters. And among those everyday coins, a few bore the telltale signs that elevate them above mere pocket change. Finding a rare 1980 quarter begins with the mint mark. On circulated pieces, you'll see a clean P or D behind Washington's head. But errors sometimes manifest as doubled mint marks, two tiny impressions slightly offset, found only by angling under a bright lamp. These ghostly echoes of the primary mint mark are subtle, requiring close inspection, but they can multiply a quarter's value by orders of magnitude. One collector in Ohio spotted a double D on a roll of Denver quarters so faint she almost missed it. When submitted for grading, that coin, graded MS-65 and displaying distinct doubling, sold for over $1,000 at auction, a testament to both patience and a keen eye. Die doubling on lettering and numerals presents another category of rarity. In some 1980 quarters, Liberty wears a secondary outline, and the date numerals show a tiny secondary strike, evidence that the hub and die weren't perfectly aligned during the hubbing process. Under 10 times magnification, that doubling looks crisp, almost geometric, with each letter or number sporting a shadow that separates from the master impression by a hair's breadth. Collectors refer to these as doubled die obverse or reverses, depending on which side carries the anomaly. A well-struck double die obverse from 1980, graded MS-64 or higher, can command prices in the mid-four figures, and certified MS-65 examples sometimes exceed $2,000. Die cracks add yet another layer of intrigue. Early in the year, both Philadelphia and Denver used dies that, by mid-run, had developed minute fractures from the immense pressures of striking. These cracks show up as raised lines, often crossing through Washington's shoulder or tracing the contours of the eagle's wings. Some cracks are faint, little hairlines that demand a practiced eye, while others are pronounced enough to look like artistic flourishes. One particular Philadelphia minted quarter, nicknamed the comma crack by collectors, features a crack resembling a tiny comma just above the eagle's left claw. That coin sold for over $500 in 2024, not for its grade alone, but for the distinctive crack that set it apart. Perhaps the most visually dramatic errors are off-center strikes. When a planchet isn't perfectly seated, the press leaves part of the design missing and a blank or partial rim on one side. On a 1980 quarter, even a slight shift of 2 millimeters yields a subtle off-center, prized by error collectors. More extreme misalignments, 5 or 6 millimeters, produce coins where Washington's portrait sits near the edge or the eagle's wings almost disappear entirely. Those bold errors draw crowds at coin shows. Collectors gather around trays under lamps, comparing off-center percentages and paying premiums that scale with the degree of misalignment. A 10% off-center 1980 Denver quarter graded MS-63 fetched nearly $800 recently, while a spectacular 25% misalignment sold privately for over $1,000. Turning to market values for the 1980 quarter, the vast majority in circulation remain at face value or slightly above, if uncirculated. A circulated piece grades between good and very fine, valued at 25 cents to $1. But once you move into about uncirculated $50 to $58, prices climb. $58 specimens, often with attractive luster and minimal contact marks, sell for around $10 to $15. Uncirculated grades MS-60 through MS-65 offer the real excitement. An MS-60 quarter might be worth $25. Error coins redefine those ceilings. A double-die MS-65 can command four figures, with some collector-grade pieces reaching $3,000 to $5,000 in private sales or auctions. Die crack error coins graded MS-64 or higher often sell in the few hundreds, and the most pronounced, distinctive cracks can push toward or beyond 1,000. Off-center specimens follow a spectrum. A slight 5% shift in MS-63 might sell for $100, while a bold 20% shift in MS-65 can fetch upward of $800. The record for a 1980 quarter error stands around $2,000 for an extraordinary MS-66 double-die obverse with a bold off-center strike, a true trifecta of rarity. Beyond headline figures, anecdotes reveal the human side of these coins. A dealer at a Chicago coin show once watched a collector gasp as he held a 1980 double-die obverse, the letters of Liberty stacked like a miniature staircase. The two men negotiated quietly, then shook hands on a deal that funded the dealer's next purchase and the collector's first rare coin album. In California, a teenager spotted a trio of 1980 quarters in his dad's old coin jar. Two normal, one with a die crack running through the eagle's head. Storytelling even extends to die marriage research. Specialists have cataloged dozens of obverse and reverse die pairings for the 1980 quarters, each identified by microscopic die markers, tiny die gouges, minute planchet lamination marks, or distinctive crack patterns. Collectors use online registries to log their finds, comparing images and data to confirm die marriages. Condition variations remain pivotal. In circulated grades, where hides doubling and cracks, so finding error coins in circulation is a long game. Uncirculated grades reveal every detail. Luster radiates from fields, high points retain full definition, and anomalies stand out like a signature. Grading services provide the confidence of an expert opinion, and collectors often chase specific grades for errors, seeking that balance of eye appeal and rarity. A certified MS-64 double-die obverse might sell for over $1,000, while an MS-67 no-error specimen, though rare, typically trades around $500 to $600. The comparison underscores how anomalies can multiply a coin's baseline value. At the end of the day, both the 1987 and the 1980 quarters remind us why coin collecting endures. It's not just about silver or gold, but about the stories pressed into metal, the thrill of discovery, and the connection to moments in time. Every small doubling, silent crack, and off-center strike invites a story, a conversation, and the possibility of something truly rare. So keep your loop handy, your eyes sharp, and your sense of wonder alive, because the next treasure might just be a quarter you thought you already knew.